Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle here with another Christian News and Views. This is episode 110, and got a little bit of news here to report, so I'm going to move along with it here. The China and India could be affected if Donald Trump introduces tariffs of 25 to 50% against countries buying Russian oil. These are analysts who are saying this, that the U.S. president told NBC he would impose such members within a month if a deal isn't made and if I think it was Russia's fault. He's a little frustrated with Vladimir Putin's delaying tactics and his attempts to discredit Vladimir Zelensky. So that's the first part of the news here. Some countries, including China and India, are not participating in anti-war sanctions against Russia or Russian oil. Secondary sanctions or tariffs imposed directly on them by the U.S. could further limit Putin's access to oil revenue to fund the war. So while they may not be part of the international effort, they're going to be impacted by it, and that has even China has been wary about breaching them in case it attracts secondary penalties. Some Chinese banks have actually curtailed dealings with Russian companies for fear of being barred from the international banking system. So that's something that is worth considering. Another analyst says that targeting buyers, as Trump has done with Venezuelan oil, could affect China and India. We need to see, however, what will be announced over the coming days. India has surpassed China to become the biggest buyer of seaborne Russian crude oil, which comprised about 35% of India's total crude imports in 2024. There have been concerns since the beginning of the war about India being a backdoor for Russian oil exports. A former senior U.S. Commerce Department officials said the haphazard way Trump was announcing and threatening tariffs left questions unanswered, including how U.S. officials could trace and prove which countries were buying Russian oil. Now, this is a separate analyst, not somebody in the government, and the government would be the one doing the tracing. Trump also claimed on Sunday that Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky was trying to back out of the rare earth deal. So that hasn't really been signed yet. That's an on again, off again type of thing. Basically, it's a matter of wills, I guess, between Trump and Zelensky. So Trump is trying to impose some rather strict demands, and so far it's resulted in a sort of a stalemate, it looks like to me. So we'll just have to see how that works out. Russia bombed the city of Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine for the second night in a row. And there were people injured, and there's fires, damage. There was a kindergarten and private homes were damaged. The attacks lasted most of the night, said Kharkiv's mayor. Zelensky on Sunday said Moscow had fired more than 1,000 drones in the past week and called for a response from the United States and other allies. So there has not been an agreement on that one yet between the United States and Russia. Again, now in this case, Putin is making demands that Trump considers. I don't think he said this, but I'm feeling that this is the way he's thinking. They were dead on arrival. He doesn't like them, and he's, as far as he's concerned, they're not going to be considered. Russia, on their hand, says they're on the table. So again, we have a matter of will what's going on here. Russia's defense ministry claimed on Sunday that its forces had gained control over Zaporizhzhia. Yeah. I'm, I try to make a pronunciation of these words, but this one might beat me up. Zapor is, well, let's see, there must be some silent letters there. Zaporizhzhia, a settlement in Ukraine's Donetsk region. The village is unrelated to a nuclear power plant with the same name. The Russian claim was reported by Reuters, which said it was not able to verify. So the village is about 7 kilometers from the borders of Ukraine's central Dnipropetrovsk region. The Donetsk region borders to the east. So Ukraine's military said on Sunday that it destroyed 65 out of 111 drones launched by Russia during an overnight attack. It added that another 35 drones were locationally lost without causing damage. This is typically a reference to electronic jamming. But damage was reported in the Kharkiv and some other regions. So we're going to get to my opinion on all this. So what I'm going to do is take it point by point here. So I think it's good that these other countries, or they're not participating in the anti-Russian oil purchases, or they've been buying the oil, and so they're not feeling the pinch. Now they're going to feel the pinch, and I think that that is a good thing, because that lets them know, hey, just because you're not participating doesn't mean you're not going to participate in some way. We put down this thing, and you're going to have to abide by it, or you're going to suffer the consequences. And that can be some pretty severe consequences for both China and India. I think we're going to be touching on that again here in a minute. But right now, I just think it's a good thing that they're starting to feel, well, they will be, once the tariffs are announced, they will be feeling the pinch. And you got to remember, there's all sorts of politics involved, but a lot of it comes down to the money. You know, you've always heard the saying, follow the money trail. It's even true in politics. And so these countries, if they feel that pinch, it's going to hurt their economies, and they don't want that to happen. And so there's some countries, here we go, the next point here, is some countries, including China and India, are not participating in the anti-war sanctions against Russian oil. Secondary sanctions or tariffs imposed directly on them by the U.S. could further limit Putin's access to oil revenue to fund the war. So what now Russia is doing is sending their oil different places. China and India are two of the big ones. And if you start shrinking that so that the Russians get less and less money, or revenue as they call it, from their sales, that's going to impact them. They're already hurting, and that's going to hurt them even more. So while not joining the international sanctions, they are already reacting by being very wary about breaching those sanctions in case it does attract secondary penalties. In fact, I mentioned this earlier, some banks, Chinese banks, have already curtailed dealings with Russian companies because of this. And you're probably going to see more of that. And so, again, it's a good thing. It's bringing pressure on Russia to come to the table, and not just come to the table, but come to the table knowing that they're going to have to make some kind of compromises. They're going to have to back off. They are not in control. Right now, they think they have the control. But I believe that Trump is saying, no, you don't. I'm in control. And you better realize it, or you're going to suffer even more. And then on the deal of China and India in particular, this analyst said this: we need to see, however, what will be announced over the coming days. India has surpassed China to become the biggest buyer seaborne Russian crude oil. So that's India has been considered a backdoor for the Russian oil exports. You close that or even shrink it, that is going to have a major impact on Russia, on their economy. And you got to always remember this, folks. Russia, I would call Russia a paper tiger right now. They may have had some substance earlier, but that substance has been eroded. They are winning only because they're willing to throw mass amounts of human bodies at the Ukrainians. Short term, that's bringing success. Long term, it's going to be really hard on them. They're not only losing human bodies, they're losing equipment. And the equipment that's not easily reproduced or replaced. So I think that Trump is really clamping down on this. This is really they're beginning to feel his personality, if you will. They're beginning to feel the actual plan that he has, and we're beginning to see it happen. I know analysts out there are nervous. That's okay. Just pop some aspirin and go to your doctor and get some aspirin or something like that. I'm not too concerned about what analysts think. I'm more concerned about what Russia thinks and what China thinks and India thinks. And what I see is that they are all reacting to this. Russia's probably getting their back up, so to speak, but China and India are beginning to toe the line. And if they do that, then that changes the whole picture in the Ukrainian war. Speaking of Ukraine, Trump claims that Zelensky is trying to back out of the rare earth deal. Well, that hasn't been signed yet, so you can't really back out of it. What he's trying to get is he's banning the first cut of all Ukraine's mineral resource revenue for years, plus interest in return for military aid. And I still think, I think he's aware of the fact that was never an option when our government gave any equipment worth whatever it was worth. It was never meant as a get now, pay later type of thing. It was to help out Ukraine. And other countries, like in Europe, are not expecting any repayment. And so I don't see how firm Trump's going to be on that. Again, it's one of those things I have to watch. Zelensky seems to be a pretty tough guy himself. I mean, not too many people can stand up to Trump, and he's doing it. So we'll just see how that goes. So we have a treaty that hasn't been signed yet, but it's already being violated. I mean, they had this idea of a sort of an agreement in place to not bomb anybody for 30 days. Well, that didn't last. And so it was never really inked as far as the signing goes. But there was this goodwill type of thing going on. And that's not showing any kind of goodwill, what the Russians are doing. But see, the thing is, Russia right now thinks they hold the cards. They think they're in charge. And Trump is trying to bring them to the table and say, no, you are not in charge. So, I hope you have enjoyed this. I try to give you my outlook on things, perspective, if you will, from a Christian point of view, from a conservative point of view, and from, you could say, a non-participant. I'm not a rich guy out there with 100 degrees behind his name. I'm not a guy out there who is in government circles. And I've never received a phone call from Donald Trump asking for my wisdom. I'm just a simple man trying to provide to you my views. And maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. That is fine. I hope you agree. But if you disagree, feel free to comment, and I'll take a look at them. And I may even comment there, or I may eventually follow up with another video which responds to that. But I'm not afraid of people commenting or even disagreeing with me. So if you do want like this and you have not yet subscribed to this channel, then right down below here there is a place for you to click on and subscribe, and you can become part of TR Independent Books channel. You can get it, and when you get that channel, you not only get Christian news and views, which is obviously this, but you also get my other podcast called Becoming a Published Author is Fun, and that's something I enjoy doing. I'm giving out free advice, free hints, free wisdom, if you will, about how you can write your book, get it published. I even get into marketing, and these are all sorts of things that I talk about. Most of it takes place between your ears here, right here, right here. Most of it is something of an attitude. Most of it is things that you can think of and do, and on your end, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. And in many cases, it doesn't cost you any money. None of it costs you money as far as receiving advice from me is concerned. And that's important to me because I didn't have that kind of advice when I started out. And it took me years, decades to get to the point where now I'm a published author. And so I'm sharing that with you. It's something I enjoy doing, and I hope you enjoy receiving. So if you do subscribe, you encourage me. And if you subscribe, I promise to do all in my power to create episodes that will inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. Now that's true whether we're talking about becoming a published author is fun. I want to inspire you, encourage you, and all that. But that's also true here on Christian News and Views. I'm not asking that you take my views as gospel. Now, the closest I get to gospel is when on Thursdays I do Bible talk. Now I'm talking about the Word of God. And I let God do the talking. I may quote other people and so forth, but it's not my opinion. It's what God says that counts. But here on Christian News and Views, I give you my opinion, separate from the news itself, which is unique these days, and let you know and take it, and sort of like a cow chews on a cud, you chew on this and think about it, and you come to a conclusion. It could be an agreement, partial agreement, or no agreement whatsoever. The thing is, I'm trying to get you to think about the news separate from what the news itself is trying to sell you, and that you might have a better perspective, if you will, of the world at large. That's it for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this and that you will tune in for the next episode. See you then.